Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of Kepler Station, watching the stars through the thick glass. His daughter Emma pressed her small hands against the window beside him, her breath fogging the surface as she pointed at the distant ships moving between the planets. "Daddy, look at that one. It looks like a jellyfish," Emma said, her voice filled with wonder. She was 8 years old, and everything in space amazed her. Jake smiled and ruffled her blonde hair. "That's a Velthari cruiser, sweetheart. There, one of the species we're meeting with today." Emma turned to look at her father with bright blue eyes. "Are they nice?" "I hope so," Jake replied, though something in his voice suggested he wasn't entirely sure. Kepler Station was humanity's first diplomatic outpost in Galactic Council space. It was small compared to the massive alien stations they had seen, but it was home to 30 human diplomats and their families. Jake commanded the station and led Earth's efforts to join the galactic community as peaceful members. The station's main conference room was prepared for today's meeting. Representatives from 5 different alien species would gather to discuss humanity's application for full council membership. Jake had spent months preparing for this moment. Earth wanted to show that humans were civilized, peaceful, and ready to take their place among the stars. Emma had come to the station as part of a cultural exchange program. The idea was to show the galaxy that humans valued family and raised their children with love and care. Several other human families lived on the station, and their children attended a small school that taught both human and alien languages. "I come to the meeting today?" Emma asked as they walked through the station's corridors. Jake shook his head gently. "Sorry, kiddo. These meetings are just for grown-ups. But you can watch from the observation room if you want." Emma pouted for a moment, but then brightened. "Can I draw pictures of the aliens to show Mom when we get home?" "That sounds perfect," Jake said. The morning passed quickly. Jake reviewed his notes one more time while Emma played with her favorite doll in his office. The doll had brown hair, like Emma's best friend back on Earth, and Emma had named it Lucy. She carried Lucy everywhere and often talked to the doll when she was nervous or excited. At noon, the alien representatives began arriving. Jake watched from the station's docking bay as their ships connected to the station. The Velthari ship was the largest, a flowing organic shape that did look somewhat like a jellyfish. The Kepler's automated systems translated the docking procedures into multiple languages. Jake put on his best diplomatic uniform and made his way to the conference room. Emma went to the observation room with Mrs. Corell White, the station's teacher, who would watch the children during the meeting. The conference room was oval-shaped with a large table in the center. Jake took his seat as the alien representatives entered. There was Zixthara, the Velthari representative, who looked like a tall, thin humanoid covered in smooth purple skin. Her large black eyes seemed to look right through Jake. When she nodded at him, the other representatives included a rock-like being from the Granite Confederation, a floating gas creature from the Cloud Worlds, and 2 others that Jake had studied, but still found difficult to tell apart. "Welcome, representatives," Jake began in carefully practiced Galactic Standard. "Earth is honored to meet with the Council today." The meeting started well. Jake presented Earth's achievements in science, art, and philosophy. He showed images of human cities, schools, and hospitals. He talked about humanity's desire for peace and their dream of exploring the galaxy alongside other civilized species. Then Zixthara spoke. Her voice was like wind through metal, translated by the station's computers into words Jake could understand. "These humans speak of civilization," she said, "but they breed like animals. They allow their offspring to roam freely without proper restraint. On Velthar, children are kept in controlled environments until they reach the age of responsibility." Jake felt his jaw tighten, but kept his voice calm. "Human children learn by exploring and asking questions. We believe this makes them better adults. Primitive, Zixthar replied with what might have been a sneer. Your breeding practices show you are not ready for true civilization. The other representatives seemed uncomfortable with Zixthara's words, but they said nothing. Jake continued the presentation, though the mood in the room had changed. Unknown to the adults in the conference room, Emma had grown bored in the observation room. Mrs. White was helping another child with a drawing, and Emma decided to explore. She had been on the station for 2 months and knew all the corridors well. Emma wandered through the halls, carrying Lucy and humming a song her mother had taught her. She could hear voices coming from the conference room and decided to peek inside. The door was slightly open, and Emma could see her father talking to the strange aliens. One of the aliens had something that looked like a small animal sitting on the table next to her. It was purple and fuzzy and had big eyes. Emma loved animals and had been sad that there were no pets on the station. Without thinking, Emma pushed the door open wider and stepped into the room. All the talking stopped as the aliens and her father turned to look at her. Emma, Jake said, starting to stand, but Emma was already walking toward the purple fuzzy thing. Oh, it's so cute, she said, reaching out to pet what she thought was a friendly alien creature. Her small hand touched the object, which was actually a sacred Velthari religious artifact made from the preserved remains of their most holy prophet. Zixthara rose from her chair with a sound like breaking glass. Her black eyes grew even larger, and her purple skin began to glow with anger. Desecration, she shrieked in her own language before the translators could catch up. The sacred relic has been touched by this primitive spawn. Wait, Jake shouted, moving toward his daughter. She's just a child. She didn't know, but Zixthara had already drawn her plasma weapon. The other representatives sat frozen in shock as she pointed the glowing device at Emma, who stood confused and frightened in the middle of the room. The law is clear, Zixthara said, her voice now deadly calm. Desecration of the holy relic is punishable by immediate death, regardless of the offender's age or species. Please, Jake begged, his hands raised. She's 8 years old. She doesn't understand. Punish me instead. The Velthari representative's finger moved to the weapon's trigger. Ignorance is no excuse for blasphemy. The plasma discharge filled the room with blue light. Emma Morrison fell to the floor, her small body smoking from the energy blast. Lucy the doll landed beside her, one of its arms burned away. Jake dropped to his knees beside his daughter, gathering her lifeless body in his arms. Tears ran down his face as he looked up at the alien representatives, who sat in stunned silence. Only Zixthara seemed unmoved. The sacred law has been satisfied, she announced. Jake's tears stopped flowing. His face became very still as he looked at each alien representative in turn. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but somehow more frightening than if he had screamed. You have no idea what you've just awakened. Admiral Karen Brooks sat in her office on Luna Station, reading reports from across human space. At 65, she had seen humanity grow from a single-planet species to explorers of the galaxy. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform was perfectly pressed. She had earned her position through 40 years of service, though most of that service had been peaceful exploration and colony protection. The secure communication terminal on her desk began flashing red. Priority messages were rare. Emergency. Priority messages were almost unheard of. Karen activated the terminal and saw Jake Morrison's face appear on the screen. He looked older than she remembered, and there was something in his eyes that made her stomach tighten. Admiral, Jake said, his voice flat and controlled. I need to report an incident at Kepler Station. Karen listened without interruption as Jake told her what had happened. His words were precise and professional, but she could see the pain behind his calm expression. When he finished, she sat in silence for a long moment. "Jake, I'm sorry," she said finally. "Emma was a good kid." "Yes, she was," Jake replied. "Admiral, I need you to know that the Galactic Council representatives present at the meeting voted to uphold the Velthari action. They ruled justified under their laws." Karen's hands gripped the edge of her desk. "All of them?" "All of them. They said the death was regrettable, but legal according to Velthari religious law, which the Council recognizes." "I see." Karen's voice was very quiet. "Jake, bring your people home." "All of them. Close the station." "Yes, ma'am." After the transmission ended, Karen sat staring at the blank screen. Then she opened a different communication channel, one that required her personal authorization codes and a biometric scan. "This is Admiral Brooks," she said when the connection opened. "Authorization code Sierra-Alpha-7-7-9. I need to speak with Director Turner immediately." 3 time zones away on Earth, Dr. Alex Turner was teaching a class at the Colonial University. He was explaining to his students how humanity had learned to be peaceful members of the galactic community. The classroom was full of young people who dreamed of working in space, of meeting alien species, of exploring distant worlds. "You see," Alex was saying, "we've proven that humans can evolve beyond our violent past. We've shown the galaxy that we're capable of—" His personal communicator buzzed with an emergency signal. Alex frowned and checked the device. The message was short. "Call me immediately. It's about Emma Morrison." "Karen." Alex felt the blood drain from his face. He knew Emma Morrison. He had met her when Jake brought her to Earth for a pre-deployment briefing. She was a bright, curious girl who had asked him a dozen questions about alien cultures. "Class dismissed," Alex said suddenly. "We'll continue this discussion next week." The students looked confused, but began packing their bags. Alex waited until they were gone before activating his secure communicator. "Karen? What about Emma?" Admiral Brooks told him everything. Alex listened, his face growing pale. When she finished, he sat down heavily in his chair. "They killed a child," he said. "They killed an 8-year-old girl for touching something she didn't understand." "Yes," Karen said. And the council backed them up. Alex was quiet for a moment. "Karen, I think it's time." "I was hoping you'd say that. I'll contact the others." "How long do we have?" "Jake's bringing everyone home from Kepler Station. That gives us maybe a week before the council realizes we're not coming back to negotiate." "That's enough time," Alex said. "I'll make the calls." 2 hours later, General Lisa Parker received a call at her office in Colorado. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex was humanity's most secure military facility, built into solid rock and protected by defense systems that most people didn't know existed. Lisa was reviewing training reports when her secure phone rang. She recognized Alex Turner's voice immediately. "Lisa, we need to talk," Alex said. "It's about Project Sleeping Giant." Lisa set down her papers. She had hoped never to hear those words. "What's happened?" Alex told her about Emma Morrison. As he spoke, Lisa walked through the corridors of the mountain base, past security checkpoints and blast doors that hadn't been opened in decades. She came to a heavy vault door marked with warnings in 12 languages, including several that were no longer spoken on Earth. "Are you sure about this, Alex?" Lisa asked. "Once we wake them up, there's no going back. They killed a human child. Called it justice," Alex replied. "They made their choice." Lisa entered her authorization codes and pressed her palm to the scanner. The vault door began to open with a grinding sound of massive gears. Inside, computer systems that had been dormant for 50 years began to activate, casting blue light on walls covered with technical diagrams and star charts. "I'll begin the awakening protocols," Lisa said President Sam Davis was in the Oval Office when his security advisor brought him the news. He listened to the report without speaking, his face showing no expression. When the advisor finished, the president was quiet for a long time. "Mr. President?" The advisor asked, "What are your orders?" Sam walked to the window and looked out at the White House lawn. Somewhere out there, beyond the sky, his nation's representatives were coming home because aliens had murdered a little girl and called it legal. "Schedule a press conference," Sam said, "and get me Admiral Brooks on the line." "What should I tell?" "The press the topic will be. Tell them I'll be discussing America's future relationship with the Galactic Council." An hour later, President Davis stood before cameras and reporters from around the world. His prepared speech talked about diplomatic incidents and the need for justice. But the reporters noticed something in his eyes, something that reminded them of old photographs from darker times in human history. "The United States government has been informed of an incident at Kepler Station," the president said. "An American child, Emma Morrison, was killed by representatives of the Velthari Empire in the presence of Galactic Council members. The council has ruled this killing justified under alien law." A reporter raised her hand. "Mr. President, what will America's response be?" President Davis looked directly into the camera. "America has always believed that the innocent should be protected. We have always believed that might does not make right. Recent events have shown us that not all species in the galaxy share these beliefs." "Are you saying we're withdrawing from the Galactic Council?" "I'm saying that America is reconsidering its position in galactic affairs. We went to the stars believing that civilization meant the same thing to everyone. We were wrong." "Mr. President, are you threatening military action?" Sam Davis smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "I'm simply reminding the galaxy that humanity has always been very good at protecting its children. We've just been choosing not to show that side of ourselves. Recent events suggest a choice may have been a mistake." That night, across human space, old communications networks began activating. Messages flowed between Earth, Mars, the asteroid belt, and colonies that most people had forgotten existed. The messages were short and used codes that hadn't been transmitted in generations. On a mining station near Jupiter, Commander Ryan Clark received the message that made him leave his dinner half-eaten. He walked to a section of the station that was officially used for equipment storage, but actually contained something much more important. "Computer," he said, "authorization Clark 77 Alpha. Begin Project Resurrection." Deep in the asteroids between Mars and Jupiter, automated systems that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. Massive construction yards that had been disguised as mining operations started producing ships from blueprints that Earth's government had hoped never to use again. On Earth, Dr. Alex Turner sat in his office and opened a file cabinet that contained documents marked with the highest security classification. He pulled out a folder labeled Species Profile, Humanity, Actual Assessment. The first page contained a single line: recommendation. Under no circumstances should this species be provoked to warfare. Historical analysis indicates probability of survival for opposing forces approaches 0. Alex closed the file and looked out his window at the peaceful Earth sky. Soon, that sky would be filled with ships, carrying a message that the galaxy was about to learn. Emma Morrison had been the wrong child to kill. Commander Ryan Clark stood on the observation deck of Station Olympus, watching something that hadn't happened in 50 years. Below him, the red surface of Mars was opening like a flower. Massive sections of what everyone thought was natural rock were sliding apart, revealing the entrances to underground shipyards that stretched for hundreds of miles beneath the planet's surface. "Computer, status report," Ryan said. "Mars Defense Complex awakening proceeding on schedule," the artificial voice replied. "Estimated time to full operational status, 72 hours." Ryan had been the caretaker of this secret for 15 years. Everyone thought he ran a simple mining operation on Mars. In reality, he was the guardian of humanity's largest military shipyard. The mining equipment was real, but it was just camouflage for something much more important. The first ship began rising from the underground dock. It was black as space itself and shaped like a blade. The ship was 2 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that violated every treaty humanity had signed with the Galactic Council. Its name was painted on the hull in white letters: Retribution. Captain Susan Wright watched her new command emerge from its underground berth. She had been retired from active duty for 10 years, officially working as a cargo pilot between Earth and the outer colonies. In reality, she had been waiting for this day. "She's beautiful," said her executive officer, Commander Pete Johnson, as he joined her on the observation deck. "She's a weapon," Susan replied. "The most dangerous weapon humanity ever built. I just hoped we'd never need to use her." The Retribution was not alone. Across Mars, dozens of other ships were awakening. There were sleek destroyers designed like ancient samurai swords, built for speed and precision strikes. There were massive assault carriers that looked like floating fortresses, designed to carry thousands of troops directly into enemy space. There were ships that resembled the longboats of Earth's Vikings, built for boarding enemy vessels and taking them by force. Each ship had been designed by studying Earth's military history. Humanity had spent 10,000 years learning how to kill each other efficiently. When they finally united and went to the stars, they had brought that knowledge with them. They just chose not to use it. On Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, Captain Amy Davis was awakening a different kind of fleet. The ships hidden beneath the ice were smaller and faster, designed for stealth and surprise attacks. They looked innocent enough, like simple cargo vessels or research ships, but each one could destroy targets 10 times their size. "All ships report ready for launch," her communications officer announced. Amy nodded. "Begin departure sequence. And remember, people, we don't exist. As far as the galaxy knows, these ships were never built." The Europa fleet began slipping away from Jupiter, their engines running silent and their hulls coated with materials that made them nearly invisible to sensors. They would be humanity's hidden daggers, striking without warning and disappearing before anyone could track them. In the asteroid belt, General Lisa Parker stood in the command center of Base Sparta. The base was built inside a large asteroid that had been hollowed out over decades. From the outside, it looked like any other space rock. Inside, it contained the coordination center for humanity's secret military network. "Status report from all sectors," Lisa ordered. "Mars complex at 60% activation," reported Major Tony Clark. "Europa fleet has launched and is proceeding to assigned positions. Titan defense grid is online. Earth orbital platforms are activating." Lisa nodded. "And the outer system?" "Contact established with Deep Six," Major Clark replied. "They report all systems green." Deep Six was humanity's most secret installation. Built beyond Pluto's orbit, it had been disguised as a research station studying the edge of the solar system. In reality, it housed the ships that would serve as humanity's final surprise. Commander Tim Foster had been alone at Deep Six for 3 years, maintaining systems that he hoped would never be used. The isolation had been difficult, but he understood the importance of his mission. Now, as he watched his ships power up for the first time in decades, he felt a mixture of excitement and dread. The ships at Deep Six were different from the others. They were built for one purpose: to hunt and destroy enemy fleets in deep space. They were fast, deadly, and equipped with weapons that could crack planets. Humanity called them the Reapers. "All Reaper ships report ready," Foster announced to Base Sparta, awaiting orders. Back on Earth, Dr. Alex Turner sat in a secret conference room beneath the Colonial University. Around the table sat the other members of Project Sleeping Giant's Command Council. These were the people who had planned for this day for 50 years, hoping it would never come. "Gentlemen, ladies," Alex said, "Operation Resurrection is now active. For the first time since the Unification Wars, humanity's full military capability is awakening." Admiral Brooks appeared on the main screen from Luna Station. "Fleet status report. We now have over 300 active warships across the solar system. Each ship is equipped with weapons and technology that the Galactic Council believes doesn't exist." "What about our defensive positions?" asked Colonel Sarah Beck, the head of Earth's Orbital Defense Network. "All planetary defense grids are online," Brooks replied. "If the Council tries to attack Earth in response to our actions, they'll find that we're not as defenseless as they think." Alex looked around the table. "Are we all in agreement? Once we begin active operations, there's no going back. The galaxy will know what humanity really is." Everyone nodded. "Then it's time," Alex said. "Send the activation codes to all fleet commanders. Operation Guardian begins now." Across human space, ships that had been sleeping in hidden docks and secret bases began moving toward their assigned positions. Most were heading for the edge of human territory, where they would wait for orders. But some had different missions. Captain Susan Wright stood on the bridge of the Retribution as her ship left Mars orbit. Around her, the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled was forming up for departure. These ships would not hide. They would not run secret missions. They would be humanity's message to the galaxy. "We are not the weak species you thought we were." "Helm, set course for the Kepler sector," Susan ordered. "Ma'am, that's Council space," her navigator pointed out. "Yes, it is," Susan replied. "And it's time the Council learned why humans spent so many centuries fighting each other. We got very good at it." The Retribution and her escort fleet began their journey toward alien space. Behind them, Mars was returning to its disguise as a simple mining world. But the secret was out. Humanity's ancient fleet was awake in his quarters. Aboard the Retribution, Commander Pete Johnson was reading reports from intelligence sources throughout the galaxy. The aliens were confused and frightened by the attacks on Velthari installations. They had no idea who was responsible or how to stop them. Soon, they would learn the truth. Soon, they would understand that killing Emma Morrison had awakened something that had been sleeping for 50 years. They had wanted to see humanity's true nature. They were about to get their wish. Captain Amy Davis stood in the cargo hold of her ship, the Silent Runner. To anyone scanning them, the ship looked like a simple merchant vessel carrying supplies to outer colonies. The cargo manifest listed farming equipment, medical supplies, and entertainment systems. It did not mention the weapons hidden behind false walls or the elite strike team preparing for their mission. "Target acquired," announced Lieutenant Ben Moore from the bridge. "Velthari Patrol Station, Alpha 7. 3 ships, minimal defenses." Amy looked at her team. They were dressed like ordinary cargo workers, but each one was a veteran of Earth's. Special Forces. They had trained for years in zero-gravity combat and alien technology capture. Today, they would begin their work. "Remember the mission," Amy said. "We go in quiet, we do our job, and we leave our calling card. No survivors who can identify us, but we don't harm anyone who stays out of our way." The Silent Runner approached. The Velthari station broadcasting standard merchant codes. The station's traffic controller directed them to docking port 7. Everything appeared normal. The Velthari guard who met them at the airlock was tall and purple, like all his species. His name was Kixmora, and he had been stationed at this remote outpost for 2 years. He was bored and looking forward to his rotation back to the home world. "Cargo manifest," Kixmora said in broken Galactic standard. Amy handed him the datapad with their false documentation. While he reviewed it, her team spread out through the docking area, moving casually but purposefully. Everything. Piers in order, Kix Morris said. You may begin unloading. Thank you, Amy replied. Then she moved. The fight was over in seconds. Amy's team had been training together for 5 years. They moved with perfect coordination, using stunners to disable the station's crew without killing them. Within 10 minutes, they controlled this entire facility. Plant the charges, Amy ordered. Timer set for 30 minutes. That gives us time to get clear and ensures no one gets hurt. Her demolitions expert, Sergeant Kate Wilson, began placing explosive charges throughout the stations. Critical systems. The charges were small but precise. They would destroy the station's weapons and communication equipment while leaving the life support systems intact. Amy walked to the station's command center and placed a small object on the main control console. It was a child's doll with blonde hair and blue eyes, wearing a pink dress. The doll looked exactly like Emma Morrison's favorite toy. Package delivered, Amy announced. Let's go home. The silent runner undocked and moved away from the station. 30 minutes later, the charges detonated. The Velthari patrol station went dark, its weapons destroyed, and its communications dead. But the crew survived, floating in their damaged station, staring at the mysterious doll left behind. Similar attacks began happening across Velthari space. Cargo ships that appeared innocent would approach military installations, destroy them with surgical precision, and disappear. Each time, they left behind a child's doll. Commander Zixthel of the Velthari 3rd Fleet received reports of 6 attacks in one day. His purple skin had turned dark with worry as he read the intelligence summaries. Sir, we've lost contact with patrol stations throughout the outer sectors, reported his aide. Each time, survivors report finding a small human child's toy at the scene. Humans, Zixthel hissed. But how? Their ships are primitive. They have no military fleet. Perhaps they hired mercenaries, the aide suggested. No, this is coordinated. This is professional. This is ... Zixthel paused, a terrible thought occurring to him. What if we were wrong about them? On the bridge of the destroyer Nightblade, Captain Dan Mitchell watched his tactical display as another Velthari fleet moved through space, searching desperately for their attackers. The aliens had no idea that human ships were following them, invisible to their sensors. They're scared, observed his executive officer, Commander Linda Hayes. Look at their formation. They're flying like they expect to be attacked at any moment. Dan nodded. Good. Fear makes people make mistakes. The Nightblade was one of dozens of human ships now operating in alien space. They never engaged in direct combat. Instead, they followed enemy fleets, learned their patterns, and struck at their supply lines and communications. The aliens were becoming paranoid, seeing enemies everywhere. Sir, incoming message from Fleet Command, announced the communications. Officer. Admiral Brooks' face appeared on the main screen. Captain Mitchell, how are our guests doing? They're jumping at shadows, Admiral. 3 of their fleets have turned back to defend their home systems. They're pulling ships from other sectors to hunt for us. Perfect. Continue the psychological pressure. Make them believe we're everywhere. On the Velthari home world, high. Commander Vexandra called an emergency meeting of the military council. The reports from their fleet commanders were disturbing. Dozens of installations had been destroyed by unknown attackers who left only children's toys as calling cards. What do we know about these attacks? Vexandra demanded. The attackers use human-made toys, replied Intelligence Chief Mixorin. Each doll is identical and appears to represent a human child. We believe this is some kind of psychological warfare. But humans have no military fleet. They're explorers and diplomats. Perhaps we were mistaken about their capabilities, Mixorin said quietly. The room fell silent. The idea that they had misunderstood humanity was terrifying. If humans had been hiding their true military strength, what else had they been hiding? "Send a message to the other council members," Exandra ordered. "Tell them we may have a problem." But the other council species were having their own problems. The Kepler station incident had become known throughout the galaxy, and public opinion was turning against the council's decision to support the killing of a human child. On the world of Centauri Prime, massive protests filled the streets. Centaurians were a peaceful species who valued family above all else. When they learned that the council had ruled the murder of an 8-year-old child as justified, thousands of them marched on their government buildings. "Children are sacred," chanted the protesters. "Protect the innocent." Similar protests were happening on dozens of worlds throughout council space. Many species had children of their own and were horrified by what had happened to Emma Morrison. The council found itself facing not just human military action, but political pressure from their own citizens. Ambassador Ding Shulan of the Trilarian Republic stood before the emergency council session that had been called to address the crisis. "The humans have not responded to any of our attempts at communication," he reported. "Their diplomatic missions have been withdrawn from all council space. Their trade ships have stopped coming to our worlds." "What about these mysterious attacks on Velthari installations?" asked Councillor Kixmorda. "Unknown vessels using unknown technology. They appear to be human in origin, but we cannot prove this. Each attack leaves behind a child's toy." The council members looked at each other nervously. They were beginning to realize that they might have made a terrible mistake. Meanwhile, in deep space beyond the edge of known systems, Captain Susan Wright received new orders aboard the Retribution. The psychological warfare phase was working perfectly. The aliens were scared, confused, and turning on each other. It was time for the next phase. "Helm, set course for council space," Susan ordered. "It's time to introduce ourselves properly." Behind, the Retribution, the largest human fleet ever assembled, began moving toward the heart of galactic civilization. The hunt was about to become something much more serious. The galaxy was about to learn why Emma Morrison had been the wrong child. To kill. The Galactic Council's emergency session was in chaos. Representatives from 47 different species were shouting at each other in dozens of languages while their translators struggled to keep up. At the center of the massive chamber on Nexus Prime, the Council's capital world, High Counselor Thexandra tried to maintain order. "Silence," she commanded, her voice amplified throughout the chamber. "We must discuss this crisis calmly." Counselor Mixorin of the Velthari stood up, his purple skin pale with worry. "The attacks on our installations continue. We have lost 37 patrol stations and 12 supply depots. Our fleet commanders report that their ships are being followed by invisible enemies." "Invisible enemies?" scoffed Counselor Kix Beef of the Granite Coalition. "Your people are seeing ghosts because they feel guilty about murdering a child." "The child broke sacred law," Mixorin protested. "The killing was justified." "The child was 8 years old," replied Ambassador Kexdora of the Centauri Republic. "She did not understand your laws. She was innocent." The argument might have continued, but suddenly every alarm in the chamber began ringing. The massive view screens around the walls lit up with tactical displays showing the space around Nexus Prime. "What is happening?" demanded High Counselor Thexandra. The head of planetary defense, General Vix Corin, appeared on the main screen. His face was white with shock. "Counselor, we have a situation. Ships are decloaking around the planet." "How many ships?" Thexandra asked. 300 and counting, ma'am. They just appeared. On the view screens, the council members watched in stunned silence as human warships materialized from empty space. The ships were massive, bristling with weapons that had never been seen before. They moved with perfect precision, surrounding Nexus Prime in a formation that spoke of absolute military control. At the center of the human fleet was a ship that dwarfed all the others. The Retribution was 5 kilometers long and shaped like a sword. Its black hull seemed to absorb light, and the weapons mounted along its sides could be seen clearly even from orbit. "Council members," came a voice over the communication system. "This is Admiral Karen Brooks of the Human Space Navy. We need to talk." High Counselor Alexandra looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of her fellow council members. "Admiral Brooks, this is an act of war. Your ships are in violation of at least 20 galactic treaties." "The same treaties that allowed the murder of an 8-year-old child?" Admiral Brooks replied. "We're no longer interested in your treaties." On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Susan Wright watched as smaller human ships took control of the space around Nexus Prime. The planet's defense fleet was powerful, but it was nothing compared to what humanity had brought to this confrontation. "Ma'am, Planetary Defense is requesting permission to launch fighters," reported her tactical officer. "Tell them that would be unwise," Susan replied calmly. Admiral Brooks' image appeared on screens throughout the council chamber. She was an older woman with gray hair and cold eyes that had seen too much of war. Behind her, the bridge of her ship hummed with quiet efficiency. "For 50 years, Brooks began, humanity has pretended to be a young, peaceful species, learning to take its place among the stars. We signed your treaties. We followed your laws. We tried to be the civilized neighbors you claimed to want." She paused, and her expression grew harder. "You killed Emma Morrison for touching an object she didn't understand. She was 8 years old. She thought your religious artifact was a friendly animal. For this crime of innocent curiosity, your representative executed her in front of her father." Counselor Mix-Orin stood up. "The law was clear. Sacred objects cannot be—" "Sit down," Brooks said quietly. Something in her voice made the alien representative sink back into his chair immediately. "You want to know about laws?" Brooks continued. "Let me tell you about human law. The first law of humanity is that children are protected. Always. By everyone. At any cost." The view screens around the chamber began showing images of human history. Ancient warriors defending their villages. Soldiers storming beaches to protect future generations. Parents sacrificing themselves so their children could live. "You forgot something important about humans," Brooks said. "We didn't become peaceful because we were weak. We became peaceful because we were so good at war that we scared ourselves." New images appeared on the screens. The nuclear devastation of Hiroshima. The trenches of World War I. The smoking ruins of cities that had been bombed to dust. For 10,000 years, we fought each other. We learned every possible way to kill, to destroy, to break our enemies completely. We got so good at it that we nearly destroyed our own world. Captain Dan Mitchell, watching from the bridge of the Night Blade, saw alien ships trying to move into defensive positions around the planet. Each time they moved, human ships anticipated their movements and blocked them. The aliens were finding out that their military tactics were predictable to a species that had spent millennia perfecting warfare. "When we finally united and went to the stars," Brooks continued, "we made a choice. We decided to be explorers, not conquerors. Scientists, not soldiers. We chose peace because we knew the alternative." Commander Linda Hayes, serving as Mitchell's executive officer, checked her tactical display. "Sir, they're trying to call for reinforcements from the outer systems. Jam their communications," Mitchell ordered. "They need to hear this without interference." Back in the council chamber, Admiral Brooks was still speaking. "You thought we were weak because we chose diplomacy over force. You thought we were naive because we followed your laws even when they didn't make sense. You were wrong." The images on the screens changed again, showing the human ships currently surrounding Nexus Prime. Each ship was a masterpiece of military engineering, combining advanced technology with lessons learned from humanity's violent past. These ships represent 10,000 years of human military evolution, Brooks explained. Every culture that ever existed on Earth contributed something to their design. Samurai precision, Viking ferocity, Roman discipline, Spartan courage. All of it focused on a single purpose, protecting what we hold dear. General Vic Scorin appeared on the communication screen again, his face sweating. Counselor, our defense systems are being systematically disabled. We can't fight back. You're not supposed to fight back, Brooks said, apparently hearing the transmission. We're not here to conquer you. We're here to teach you a lesson. The human ships began demonstrating their capabilities. Defense satellites went dark without being visibly attacked. Planetary shield generators shut down one by one. The Council's communication network was jammed and then restored, showing that the humans could control it completely. This is impossible, whispered Counselor Kicksbiff. Your technology was primitive. Your ships were exploration vessels. Our public technology was primitive, Brooks corrected. What you're seeing now is what we built in secret, hoping we'd never need to use it. High Counselor Thex Andra found her voice. What do you want from us? Admiral Brooks smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Justice for Emma Morrison, for every innocent who has been harmed by your laws, and a guarantee that it will never happen again. The human fleet tightened its formation around Nexus Prime. The message was clear. The Council was now at humanity's mercy. The galaxy was about to learn that killing human children had consequences that the Council had never imagined. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime. His footsteps echoed in the empty hallways that had once bustled with alien diplomats and their assistants. Now human Marines stood guard at every intersection, their weapons ready but not threatening. The planet had surrendered without firing a shot. Jake carried a small bag in his hand. Inside was Emma's favorite doll, Lucy, the one that had been burned when his daughter died. He had kept it as a reminder of what he had lost and what the galaxy had taken from him. The main council chamber was exactly as he remembered it, from the holonids he had watched of previous sessions. The same curved walls, the same massive table, where representatives from dozens of species had once debated the laws that governed galactic civilization. Now, only a few aliens remained, sitting under guard while they waited to learn their fate. High Counselor Thexandra sat at the head of the table, her blue skin pale with fear. Around the table were the representatives who had been present when the decision was made to support Emma's killing. Counselor McSorin of the Velthari sat with his head down, refusing to meet Jake's eyes. Admiral Brooks entered the chamber behind Jake, followed by Captain Susan Wright and several other human commanders. They took their seats across from the Arsh. Alien representatives, but Jake remained standing. Council members, Admiral Brooks began, you are here to witness the consequences of your actions 3 months ago. Captain Morrison, would you please remind everyone what happened in this chamber? Jake walked to the center of the room, to the exact spot where Emma had fallen. He could still see it in his mind, his little girl reaching out to pet what she thought was a friendly animal, then the flash of plasma light, then her small body on the floor. My daughter Emma was 8 years old, Jake said, his voice steady but filled with controlled emotion. She was curious about other species. She wanted to be a xenobiologist when she grew up. She liked ice cream and fairy tales, and she always sighed please and thank you. He looked at each alien representative in turn. She walked into this room because she heard voices and wanted to see the aliens her daddy was meeting with. She saw what she thought was a pet animal on the table. She reached out to touch it because that's what children do. They explore. They learn. They trust that adults will protect them. Counselor McSoren shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but still would not look up. Instead of protection, she found Zixthara of the Velthari Empire, who killed her instantly for touching a religious object she didn't know existed. When I begged for mercy, when I offered to take the punishment myself, I was told that ignorance was no excuse. Jake reached into his bag and pulled out Lucy, the burned doll. He placed it on the table in the exact spot where Emma had died. This was her favorite toy, Jake said. She carried it everywhere. It was with her when she died. High Counselor. Dexandra spoke for the first time. Captain Morrison, we understand your grief, but surely this massive military response is excessive. It was a tragic accident caused by cultural misunderstanding. Jake's eyes grew cold. An accident? Your representative drew a weapon and deliberately fired it at a child. You then voted to declare this murder legally justified. That wasn't an accident. That was a choice. Admiral Brooks stood up. The Galactic Council made its position clear. You believe that might makes right. You believe that your laws justify any action, no matter how cruel. Today, we're going to show you what real might looks like. Captain Susan Wright activated a holographic display that showed the current positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. The aliens stared in shock at the sheer number of ships and their strategic positions. The Velthari Empire no longer exists as an independent nation, Admiral Brooks announced. Their fleet has been captured or destroyed. Their colonies have been occupied by human forces. Their government has been dissolved. Counselor McSoren finally looked up, his purple face filled with horror. You cannot simply destroy an entire civilization. We didn't destroy it, Admiral Brooks replied calmly. We conquered it. The Velthari people are alive and well. They're just no longer governed by leaders who think killing children is acceptable. Jake walked around the table, stopping in front of each representative. The new terms are simple. The Galactic Council will be restructured. Humanity will have veto power over all decisions. Any law that allows harm to children of any species will be abolished immediately. This is tyranny, protested Counselor Kixbeth. This is justice, Jake replied. You had the chance to choose justice when my daughter died. You chose law over mercy, power over compassion. Now you get to live with the consequences. Admiral Brooks activated another display showing human ships patrolling trade routes throughout the galaxy. Human fleets will now maintain peace in this sector. Pirates, slavers, and anyone who preys on the innocent will find themselves facing the same fate as the Velthari Empire. High Counselor Thexandra looked around the chamber desperately. What about our sovereignty? Our right to self-government? You gave up that right when you decided that killing human children was legal, Admiral Brooks said. Don't worry. We're not interested in ruling you. We just want to make sure you never hurt another innocent again. Captain Dan Mitchell entered the chamber and whispered something to Admiral Brooks. She nodded and turned back to the aliens. I have just received word that the former Velthari territories have been redistributed to species that opposed Emma's killing. The Santorai Republic and the Peaceful Coalition will govern those worlds according to more civilized laws. Jake picked up Lucy from the table and held the burned doll carefully. Every year, on the anniversary of Emma's death, this galaxy will observe Emma Morrison Day. It will be a time to remember that children are precious and must be protected. He looked directly at Counselor McSoren. You will personally ensure that every school in your territory teaches children about Emma Morrison. They will learn that she was murdered for being curious. They will learn that this can never happen again. The alien representative nodded quickly, too frightened to argue. Admiral Brooks stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. The new Galactic Council will convene next month. Human representatives will be present to ensure that the laws protect the innocent rather than those who harm them. As the human commanders filed out of the chamber, Jake remained behind for a moment. He looked at the spot where Emma had died, then at the aliens who were slowly beginning to understand their new reality. "Her name was Emma Morrison," he said quietly. "She was 8 years old. She wanted to be friends with all of you. Remember that when you write your new laws." Jake left the chamber, carrying Lucy with him. Outside, the human fleet continued its patrol of the galaxy, ensuring that no other child would suffer Emma's fate. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Human children were not to be harmed. Ever. On Earth, in a small cemetery in Ohio, a new monument was unveiled. It bore the simple inscription, "Emma Morrison, age 8, the girl who changed the galaxy. Her sacrifice had not been in vain." The universe was a safer place for all children because of what happened when the wrong little girl was killed by the wrong species. Humanity had kept its promise to protect the innocent, and the galaxy would never forget the price of harming human children.